Tammy, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, I can.
What's your error message when you started?
Erreur est survenue au démarrage de l'application. Contactez le support.
Sorry, say that again. I couldn't hear it.
It's in French.
Oui.
Since erreur est survenue. Erreur au démarrage de l'application. Contactez le support si le problème persiste. Never mind. I mean, it's time to start, so I'll just get started with the PowerPoint.
On doit commencer. Il dit, donc, il va utiliser la présentation qui est uploadée en ce moment. Donc, on va commencer quand même. OK? Parfait. Merci. Au revoir. Au revoir. Okay.
Yep.
So good morning, everybody. Welcome to Block 300 and to the presentation Create and Share Interactive Content with H5P. Mr. Tammy Belach will be doing the presentation, and he is a techno-pedagogical consultant with the Sir Wilfrid Laurier School Board. Before we start, just to let you know, your cameras and your microphones are turned off so that the presentation runs smoothly. And at the end, there will be a question period where you can type your questions in the clavardage, and I will be facilitating so that Tammy can answer them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Katia. So welcome, everybody. Bonjour. So my name is Tammy. I'm a pedagogical consultant, but I also teach at University of Sherbrooke in the VOCAD program. And today I'm going to be presenting H5P. So what I've prepared is a slide deck. And basically, the way the presentation is structured, I'm going to talk briefly on training modalities so that we understand where does H5P fit in the distance learning, e-learning scene. And then finally, I'll address the topic of open educational resources. So without further ado, let's get started. So classroom training, as we all know, is basically attending scheduled classes in person, face-to-face, and this has been our reality for the longest time. Some of it on-premise, i.e. at the center, at the school, led by an instructor, and some of it off-premise, where you would take your students on a field trip or attend a conference. This classroom training has been enhanced with technology. Some VR equipment is being used in the class and simulators of all kinds. And this is not new, it's been around for the longest time. If you're my age, you'd remember the overhead projectors, and that evolved into slide projectors, and now we have digital cameras. So this has been ongoing, this technology entering the classroom. And I'll use this diagram to sum up the situation. In the 21st century, typically a classroom looks like this. You've got a teacher with a desktop hooked up to an overhead projector, and eventually a smart board, and students using some kind of devices, tablets, sometimes phones. And all this is made possible thanks to the technology, which is represented here as a Wi-Fi connection. So Wi-Fi has really changed the technology in the classroom big time. So the Wi-Fi has also brought in cloud storage. These are a number of examples. OneDrive from Microsoft, Dropbox, Google Drive. and all of us have access to some kind of cloud storage, as well as the students, and that's has made a big difference in training delivery. Now, e-learning is a different type of modality, and it's basically learning on your own using digital instructional material. And some of it was done offline for the longest time using DVDs or content you would download on your computer. And with the advent of the web, it's being done online as well. So this is basically learners being on their own, facing instructional material. So some issues came with this technology is the responsiveness of the web. That means the content has to display on whatever device you're using. In fact, on the same device, you could be accessing data from Microsoft or from Google, and this is our reality these days. So virtual training is another modality, this time with attending interactive, instructor-led classroom in real time via the internet. And this has been our reality during COVID. So it's online, web-based. Most of it is synchronous, although some of it can be asynchronous. And there's some audiovisual material being exchanged during those classes. Now, LMSs, learning management systems, are a big component in this change of delivery mode. On this slide, you see a number of names. You might be familiar with Edmodo or Moodle. There's many more out there. And what I'm interested in today is in the functionality of an LMS is the content authoring part. And an LMS is capable of doing a number of things, but I'm really interested in the creation of content, and that in the industry, in the software industry, is a segment called course authoring software. So it's software dedicated for creating e-learning content. Now, finally, the last delivery mode is what is referred to as blended learning or hybrid, where you use different modalities. So some of it is face to face, some of it is synchronous online, some of it is self-taught online. And typically, for those of you that are in VOCAD, a 15 hours course or training would unfold this way. So 5 hours a week, let's say, and on week one, there'll be 3 hours of face-to-face delivery, and then the other 2 hours would be split between synchronous and asynchronous. Synchronous being live into a forum, and asynchronous is attending interactive material online in some form of a learning management system. So what I'm interested in today is really the asynchronous part. So you're not in Zoom or Teams. The student is trying to learn on his or her own using interactive material. Oops, too fast on here. So just to recap about training modalities, we've got classroom training, e-learning, virtual training, and blended. And for these to happen successfully, I believe you need the support of the administration in terms of flexibility, scheduling, and accommodation of enrollments. You need big support in terms of andragogy or pedagogy, so digital content repurposing and online tutoring. These are skills teachers have to learn, and we've been doing that very, very quickly. And you also need good technical support, whether it's hardware, software, or IT or telecommunication, like we're trying to solve these the screen sharing in the presentation today. You really need that to deliver these new modalities. And learning managements play a major role in this. So, as I said, I'm interested in the asynchronous part, and as asynchronous part is all these kinds of communications, but I'm more specifically interested in web content and self-paced e-learning. And, and e-learning is really the key word here. And it brings the question of what is e-learning authoring? What are these tools we can use to create e-learning material? Well, surprisingly, I mean, something I'm sure you're familiar with, and I'm using today, PowerPoint. PowerPoint for the longest time was considered, an e-learning authoring tool, and it's screen recording functionality. So every time you create a PowerPoint, you have the possibility to record yourself talking to your slides, and that video produced is actually e-learning material. The problem with those videos is there's no interactivity in a video like that. You just watch, you can pause, rewind. There's no interactivity per se. So the authoring industry has relied for the longest time on Flash. Flash is an Adobe product, and what's happening right now as we speak is Flash is being retired by Adobe. In fact, at the end of December, at the end of this year, there will be no more Flash capability. I know it's still out there, but it's something that Steve Jobs predicted, about 10 years ago, that the world is moving to HTML5. And this is what I'm going to talk about here is how HTML5 is becoming the medium for interactivity, and the Flash to HTML5 migration has started some time ago, and is really accelerating as we speak. So e-learning authoring tools and data interoperability, these are a number of tools that exist out there that are used to create e-learning material. Interoperability is really an issue in e-learning. Once you create content in one platform, it is hard to be able to use it in a different one. For the longest time, we've had this format called SCORM, um, to exchange content between platforms. Um, but in the background, we've been seeing a tool called H5P gradually take more space. And with the disappearance of Flash, it's really making a big difference these days. So H5P, what is it? It's an open source framework that is used by instructional designers and educators to create content that is interactive. I mean, that's what I think you should remember. It's open source, and it enables educators at large, youth sector, VOCAD, higher education, to create interactive content. Now, how do you do that, and where do you do that? Well, there is a website called H5P.org, in which you have access to a tool to create up to 40, around 40, and it's growing, different content types, interactive types. So once you create this content, interactive content that is packaged in HTML5, you can actually take it and use it wherever you want. Because it is HTML, it can be handled by any browser. So you could use it in Google site, on Moodle, on Microsoft OneNote, and many more. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you some examples of H5P. So this is another way of looking at the different content types. is I find an interesting visual to organize the different content types. So you have them grouped in three categories: easy to create, some work required, and requires significant effort. So that's one way of looking at it. And the other way is by medium. So you have auditory material, so audio, visual, quiz-like, and other. So the link is down here, and I'll be sharing the presentation in the chat at some point. So what I've done is I've picked a couple of these content types. One is called image pairing, flashcards, drag and drop, memory game, and finally presentation. So these are the 5 out of the 40 odd content types that I'm going to be demonstrating as we move along. Now, something you should know about H5P. Yes, there is a website, so it is web-based, the editor to create HTML content. But very recently, we've seen this application that you can download called Lumi, L-U-M-I. You see the URL here, lumi.education. So you download it on your desktop. And you'd be able to create HTML content, without even needing an internet connection. So I think this is a great addition to H5P, the possibility to use it offline and create content, and eventually when you are online, upload it wherever you want. So Lumi is hopefully, if I can screen share, show you how it works. So here are the types: drag and drop, and for each content type you get a little description underneath. Create, drag and drop tasks with images. You've got flashcard here. You've got image pairing, so each one has a logo, very distinctive. So drag and drop images. Memory game, um, pairing game. And last but not least is course presentation. Course presentation is very much like PowerPoint, but with interactivity built in and the capability to use it on any device, embedded in any platform. So course presentation, I think, is the content type that is the most widely used out there. So one by one, image pairing enables teachers to create pairs of images to be matched. So there is some preparation before you can create this interactive material. Like here, using a software like Paint, I created 5 little images, just writing text on a white background. And then I had to screen capture each of these coins, just going on Google Image, finding images. And then in a couple of minutes, using the image pairing activity type, I create this activity here where the learner would drag and drop a word, towards an image, and check for understanding. After dragging and dropping all these words next to the images, you click check, and you get right there a response whether you did it right or wrong. So really, it's for uh, checking for understanding. Another easy one, where I find it easy, is memory game. The memory game works a little bit like the pairing game, but the difference here is once you match 2 images, to the correctly, you can get a pop-up that explains what is it you've just matched, right? So this is USB, and this is Bluetooth. But if you had another attempt at matching and you get it right, you get a pop-up explaining what is it you've just matched. So also very easy. You have to create your images though. Okay, drag and drop, another fun one to create. So some preparation still, you find an image, you type in the words, and you associate each of these rectangles with one of these words, and it's drag and drop as the name says it. And when you click on check, it will go and check if you match them properly, and if not, you can try again. So it's learning and getting an instant reward when you succeed. And this is what learners are looking for these days when they interact with digital content. And this is what the gaming industry uses all the time, instant reward. And that's what keeps the players coming back and playing again. Flashcards. So another type of interactivity. So images again, but this time with a quick description, and the learner is asked to type in the answer. Okay? And after doing a sequence of these flashcards, you get instantly a report with which ones you got right, which ones you got wrong, and you even can get feedback. And finally, presentation. Okay, it looks like the drag and drop activity type there, but it's different. Do you see the blue rectangle at the bottom? This is the indication of which slide I am in the presentation. I mean, I can see here there's one, two, three, four different uh, rectangles at the bottom. So currently I'm on the first one, and then as you move into the slides, it keeps moving forward. And when you see a little circle there in the slide, it means there's some interactivity coming up, like quizzing in this presentation. Now, this uh, activity, this presentation activity, is actually hosted on h5p.org. And if you just type in this address here, h5p.org/h5p/embed, followed with this number, you would have access to it as it is live. Okay, so this is the beauty of H5P. And also on every H5P, you have the possibility to embed the HTML5 that gets created wherever you want, whether it's Google Sites, Microsoft, or Moodle. So just to recap on how H5P works. So they have an h5p.org. You have to log in and register yourself. Once you create content on H5P, you can link it to a platform or a site or any other LMS like Blackboard, Brightspace, Canvas. Yeah, you have the possibility to reuse your content by saving it or downloading it or embedding it. And also what H5P is preparing is a hub, h5p.org/OER hub is coming. It's supposed to be released next month, where educators from around the world will be able to share content. And this is actually where this comes in. eCampus Ontario H5P Studio. This is an initiative from Ontario to share H5P content. And it's very, very interesting. I'm going to talk about it for a couple of minutes. So if you go to this URL, H5P Studio, what it is, it's actually a search engine for H5P content. So you can type in a title, a content type like drag and drop, keyword. You can search by subject, by author, or by license the content that is actually stored on this site. So, for example, if this is screen capture of a few days ago, by going to the H5P studio, and I typed in drag and drop, well, this is the results I got. All the content on the site that has drag and drop as a as a as a as a type, I don't know, lists here, and you have the names of the authors, the subjects, the thing using it for, and how long ago it was uploaded, and the license. And if let's say I pick this activity here, famous Spanish artists, if I click on it, it will automatically show me this H5P interactive content created by this language teacher, I guess. And what it does, it's a drag and drop activity, 3 paintings from Spanish artists and some words, um, to match the words with the pictures. And this activity, right here at the bottom, I can use the reuse function, which means download it. Download it means, take it down from their server on my hard drive, or I can embed it. So just using the link, I can embed it into a Moodle site or a Google site, um, or I can use the URL, which is right here, which is similar to an h5p.org URL, but this is a database from for Ontario educators to share interactive digital content. Now, Ontario is not the only province doing this. You've got BC. Um, BC is also big on H5P. And a couple of weeks ago, they invited one of the creators of H5P, Svein Tor. She's pictured down here, and he gave a very interesting presentation on what's coming up in the next releases of H5P. And I've given you the link if you want to watch the video of the presentation there. So in BC, they are really listening to these guys in Norway and what they're doing, because with the death of Flash, HTML5 is becoming the standard, and the only tool that is open source, i.e. free, right now is H5P. And this is just as an example. This is from Netherlands, another place where people are sharing H5P content. And I went and checked for adult education, and as you can see, it's in the hundreds of people are uploading H5P content for others to reuse and repurpose. There you go. So H5P was actually mandated by UNESCO to create a hub for OER. So OER stands for Open Educational Resources, and I'm going to talk to that in a minute. So if you want to keep an eye on what's going on, visit this website or follow them on Twitter. They're doing very interesting stuff. So now, just to put things in context, this OER, Open Education Resources movement, is not new. In fact, back in 2007, the Cape Town Open Education Declaration was signed, and I believe there were 66 Canadians that signed the Cape Town Declaration in South Africa. In 2012, the UNESCO got all their members to support this this movement of open educational resources, and it's not just um, teaching material; it's also research um, um, and access to data, that is involved in this open movement. So, just trying to recap, it's open software, open licensing, open pedagogy, open culture is the idea of sharing material for the greater good. And just let you know, there's an Open Education Week every year. This year was in March, so it's an important movement, and H5P falls right into this open education and resources movement. In UK, the Open University, has been doing this and promoting this for the longest time. They actually have a course, and it's free, on how to become an open educator. So just laying the ground to understand, the concept of, sharing educational material and what's the reason behind it. Yeah, so here in Canada, we have Alec Kouros. He's from Athabasca University. Back in 2008, he coined this diagram, the network teacher, and he was saying the teacher in the future, this is before COVID, um, had to be not only able to plan and deliver a lesson and evaluate, but also what he called the network teacher, able to interact using technology with different means and techniques like blogs and wikis and video conferences. And I think he was spot on. And uh, what this lady here, Catherine Cronin, has been saying is, yes, this network teacher, which is on this diagram, the guy on the left here, the network teacher, but also what is important is the network student. It's not just the teacher that has to be networked, it's a student that has to be networked too. And I think in this COVID era, that's what we're seeing. We're seeing difficulties on both parts, to teach online and to learn online. And what COVID has accelerated is really moving from a physical space, which what used to be the main modality of training and teaching in a school or in a center, and it's has moved into the cloud very, very quickly. It has started, as we saw before, but all of a sudden we all asked to interact with all these skills in this networked uh, world. And just so that you understand what this open open education resources is. Open education resources will not happen unless we have open education practices, and that's what this guy David Wiley tells us. Um, it's the 5 R's. So the ability to retain, make a copy of the material, make it your own, and that's what H5P enables you to do. You can download any resource you find interesting, reuse it. So you create an h5p.org account, you can upload it and edit it, or you can use Lumi to edit that content and teach with it, revise it if needs be, remix it, so remix it, use it in combination with something else, and eventually redistribute it, put it back in the open for someone else to use. So they're doing very interesting things there. Um, the Open Learning Initiative, the Lumen, has nothing to do with Lumen. LumenLearning.com is an interesting place to find examples of how the open concept is used in education. So at this stage, I'll take questions. I was hoping to do a live demonstration. Before that, let me try again the screen share. Okay, so I think it works this time. Do you see my screen now? Say yes in the chat.
You have to select the skin limits. Let me try something.
You guys see
we
the
don't
H5?
see. No, we don't. We still see the slide. Did you select the screen sharing on your right hand side?
Yeah, that's what I did.
No, we still see the slide from the presentation. Maybe try again.
Okay, let's try again one more time. How about now?
No.
No, huh?
No.
Too bad, too bad. Does it work at your end, Katya? Can you share your screen?
Can I share my screen? I can try. Let me try.
Oh, I think it works, no?
Would you send the screen? I still see the presentation. Started and stopped. Because we're both trying.
It says partage en cours at my end here.
Okay. Okay, so the technician is trying to share your screen right now.
Okay.
While he's trying, maybe we can answer one question. There was one question from Annie Breton. What is embedded exactly? Maybe you can explain that.
Yeah, yeah. Embedded, basically, the H5P content remains wherever it is in the cloud, and you get to see it in another location. So you could have your Google site, and it's kind of linking to wherever the content lives. If I could share my screen, I would show you exactly what I mean.
You want to go to another question in the meantime?
Sure, sure.
Okay. We have another question. Can we do easy video editing in H5P?
It's not really for editing videos in H5P, but you can use an existing video like a YouTube video, and on the top of it, insert instructional material or quizzing. And it's very easy to do, actually, very easy to do. It's one of the content types, interactive videos. So you don't edit the video per se, but you put a layer on the top, and the video could actually remain wherever it is, Vimeo or YouTube. You're on the top, and you put your interactive material.
Okay, the next question, or maybe more of a comment. H5P seems to be quite expensive for a school license, or 13,900 per year for 100 authors.
H5P is free as far as I know as a tool. It's open source. I'm not sure where these numbers come from in terms of pricing and licensing. H5P is open source. It's free. It could be the hosting part, but as the Ontario example shows, what they've done in Ontario, they've created a one place for everybody to share content, and that's something I'm sure the school boards could get together and do, or even the ministry could start promoting. So
I can activate the microphone and the camera of the person who asked the question. Maybe you want to activate your microphone, Monsieur Beaulieu, and add to your question. Should be able to activate your microphone right now. Okay, maybe not. We can move on to the next question. Actually, there's no more questions. Are there any other questions from the participants?
trying to
Oh, Mr. Beaulieu says that he found the price on h5p.org. Does that tell you something, Tammy?
no H5P no.
Okay, so we have another question. Where can I find on H5P parameter the answers of my student?
Okay, the answers of your students would be living in your LMS. In the NH5P activity, the feedback is given to the student right away. But if you have a class or a group of students and you want to collect the answers, that would be managed by your LMS. And that's a very good question because it leads me to talk a little bit more about Moodle. And Moodle as an LMS, since this summer with version 3.9, has integrated H5P, which means in the grade book, you would collect all the results of the students participating to your Moodle class. So this is really great. I don't know if you guys use Moodle at all, but Moodle now since 3.9, um, has that capability, and your HTML file, H5P content, sorry, all the results would be stored in your LMS, and that's where you would get your reports on performance and see the results in terms of formative evaluations.
Okay. Madame Shine is asking, pouvez-vous repeat, can you repeat the procedure? Not sure what procedure you mean. Would you like to add something?
Procedure in what sense?
Can you add to your question, Madame Duchesne? I'm not getting any more. Are there any other questions? Oh, how to access H5P. So could you please repeat how to access H5P?
Yeah, H5P, you go to their website, h5p.org. There's two options. You can use Lumi, the software, to create your own H5P, and which sits on your computer. So you'll have to install the software to create your own H5P, or you go on h5p.org and create an account, and that's where your H5P content would be living, and that's where you will embed it to wherever, whether it's an LMS or a Google site.
Are there any other questions? Hold on. Here we go. We have one. I suppose we can create an H5P activity, and after we will be able to insert it in Moodle. Is it possible to integrate it in Moodle? I think it's old version of my school because H5P is not integrated in Moodle.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, if you use an older version of Moodle, you can create your H5P and then link to it from Moodle. There is a plugin also. If you have an older version of Moodle, there is a plugin that your administrator can install so that H5P can actually be created within your Moodle platform. So it is open source, and it has opened all kinds of possibilities, and really the issue of interoperability has been essentially resolved, because in the past, when you created content in one environment, you were stuck. Like in PowerPoint, you can save it into PDF. That's the best you can do. Otherwise, you really need PowerPoint to open another PowerPoint. Whereas with HTML5, any browser can open the material, and with Lumi, which is the piece of software that enables editing, you could grab any H5P you find out there and repurpose it. And this is the key word. It's remixing, repurposing digital content. And especially these days, with this COVID times, we don't have time to prepare, e-learning material. So that's why repurposing of open source material is really key. And so yes, we need the technology where we have it. It's out there. It's open source. But we also need to train, I think, educators to open education practices, which is the idea of sharing, remixing, and respecting copyright, of course, and creating spaces where teachers can share this material.
Thank you. I think it's maybe the last question in the chat, unless there's other questions at this time. All right, so thank you very much for the presentation, Tammy. And for everyone, the further workshops, you should have a link from VIA to access the different workshops. Lunchtime is between 12 to 1, and we will be restarting this afternoon workshops at 1 o'clock. Thank you very much, Tammy.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.